You are listening to the Dominance Academy podcast, the premier enclave for those who seek mastery in the arts of traditional relationship dynamics and the arcane knowledge of unlocking true leadership. We will explore the influence of desire, the mysteries behind polarity, the darker pathways of intimacy. And now your host, Mr. Justin.
What's happening, everybody? Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. This is Mr. Justin, and welcome to the Dominance Academy podcast. Today, we're going to be looking over some of the videos. Well, actually, just one of the videos from, what is it called? The, whatever the stupid fucking podcast is, but you know what I'm talking about. It's complicated. Excuse me. Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's complicated, and the funny thing is that these things are not complicated. They're not complicated at all. But yeah, so he's got, the funny thing is that he's got a very biased and very locked ideology and really wishes to see things from a very, very fixed position. And this ultimately is dangerous. All right. So it's fine to have fixed values, or to have fixed principles, or have fixed codes for how you deem yourself to operate. This is fine. But to say that what you're seeing, what you're perceiving, how you choose to live, and this is how others should live, or how others should see the world, that gets pretty messed up, because now you're trying to force people into your worldview. And the way he positions questions, he's not really asking. He's really positioning them into certain answers, kind of like the way a lawyer would. Like, lawyers will kind of lead their witnesses that they're questioning into only having a certain type of answer available to them to kind of prove the point, or the frame that the lawyer is going for. So, a lot of these things have to do with frame control, frame battles, and things of that nature. So I welcome anybody who's coming in here on the live, and welcome you who are catching this on the replay. I appreciate all of you. What's up, Pikachu? Yes, agreed. He is, his arguments are biased, or at least his, I don't know if he's posing arguments, but his frame is definitely very fixed and biased. So, so I'm going to grab that, and, while we're doing that, I'll tell you guys just about, what's going on in the Academy. I have reformulated some things. I've changed the look and layout of the website, and there's 3 tiers available to anyone who wants to get training. The first tier is just videos only. You have only access to the video library, and this is nothing to scoff at. It's a fairly large library, and it gets updated at least once a month, if not more. And then the second tier is for people who want a little bit more one-on-one. They want my personal touch. So you have access to the video library, but you also are awarded 2 calls with me for 1 hour. And you can use those 2 calls anytime you want during the month. And then the third one is the flagship program, where you have the video library plus homework plus talks with me every single week. All right. And you've got homework, you've got books to read, and you basically have me in your back pocket 24/7. So, and that's the flagship program. And of course, that one also has access to the video library plus more. So that's that. If you got questions about that, you can email me at justin@thedominanceacademy.com. and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have if it's not explained on the website clearly enough. So, without further ado, we're going to get into this this video here, and let's see here. Men's advocates, rules of modern dating, which is funny because there really are no rules. You create the rules as a man, but whatever. Here we go.
What do you think of all the different manosphere channels and the similarities and differences between their messages?
I think all the channels is kind of saturated. It's like it's a little too much. Need to be a little bit of balance to it.
I don't know if Cash Grabber.
Yeah, that's true. There's been a shit ton, all right, huge waves of this sort of thing. The problem is that there's not enough people who have a lot of boots on the ground experience, who've experienced a lot of life, a lot of women, a lot of dating, a lot of experiences. They've been married and divorced, or they've dated a lot and they've gone through the gamut of a lot of different situations, and then are able to kind of put together their information and share it with others so that they can be informative. What happens is that you've got a lot of people sharing the same sort of stuff from the same vantage points, which is often from a place of a lack of experience.
Grabbers is the right term, because not everyone's exactly cashing out from it, but there's definitely a lot of people that want to attach themselves to a movement and then shout as loud as they can.
And instead of pushing that message on men, you need to let men figure out what they want to do for themselves.
Well, that's the problem, because most guys can't think for themselves. You're conditioned to not think for yourself. You're conditioned to seek answers outside of yourself when everything that you actually need is within you. It just requires the courage to look through your own bullshit and be very honest with yourself and say to yourself, well, shit, I don't know a whole lot of things, and be okay with that understanding. And then go to someone who you believe has knowledge and that can teach you proper understanding of who you are and how to move.
What and who are they actually advocating for?
For men's rights.
They're advocating for men for sure, and some of the stuff they say is right, but they're advocating in the wrong way. They're pushing it in the wrong way. They're stealing money from these men who don't know, who have low self-esteem, who think less of themselves, and they have these people follow them and they take their money. They do make very good points about the women, and because high quality men, low quality women, bitches do be saying like, oh, she runs the world, and then cry when somebody wants to fuck them and not be with them. Bitch, you done fucked everybody already.
What's the difference?
Well, who cares? But so he started off pretty good, right? That this kid, he started off pretty good, but just an understanding that, you know, a lot of these YouTube podcasters, they have gained a lot of followership from weak, insecure guys who are looking for an answer. And so these guys, they're coming from a place of pain and ignorance. So they won't be able to really determine fact from fiction or anything. They're just looking for camaraderie. They're looking for fellowship. So when you gather a bunch of guys together who are also feeling the same way, it feels empowering. It feels like you've created some sort of this strange mutated brotherhood amongst pain, amongst the injured, amongst the ignorant. And it makes you feel better because now you're not alone. But it's not actually causing any sort of change.
The difference between advocating for men versus blaming men?
Advocating is sticking up in a brotherhood type of fashion, I'd say. Sticking up for men is almost as if men need to be stuck up for because we're at a disadvantage, which I don't think no one needs to be stuck up for. It's just unite as one.
What for? Men, like the path of man with a capital M, has always and forever will be a solo path. And if you're a man, you realize this. You realize this, that you are alone. And if you don't want to be alone, it's something that you create. It's not something you lock arm in arm with a bunch of guys who feel alone, and now you're not alone. You're still alone. These guys, as much as you feel connected to them online or whatever, they're not really there for you, and neither are these YouTubers that are stealing your mind, stealing your attention, and allowing you to give you your money. This is not the case. The path of man, the path of the seeker, is solo, and it's all about you. That's what the game is all about. It has nothing to do with brotherhood or fellowship or anything like that. Now, that's not to say you're not going to have friends. You're not going to have comrades. You are. But each man who's on the battlefield, even though you have perhaps a brother at your side, they're in their own world. They're dealing with their own demons, their own challenges, their own rewards, and and their own defeats. This is the way it is. So you can have friends, you can have comrades, and occasionally check in with them and say, hey, how are things going? But it's more so just an honorable thing to do. It's not really because you're seeing if they need any help, right? Because you want to be around men who are strong enough to help themselves. And this is how a brotherhood exists, is when each individual is strong on their own and they're not looking for help. They're not looking for a shoulder to cry on. They're not looking for someone to make them feel better about themselves. It's better to be surrounded by men who have their shit together, who don't hate themselves, who don't feel down about themselves and think that they are, they're the best. They're the best them, even if there's things to work on. That there's confidence in their existence. This is who you want to be shoulder to shoulder with, but never locking arm in arm.
If red pill creators can't see men as victims, how can they be advocates for men?
I don't think they care about the people that they're pushing the message to.
Of course they don't.
At all.
Why is shaming women seen as hate, while shaming men is seen as...
So what happened was, when there was this huge surge of these red pill channels, it brought in people with like minds, right? Birds of a feather flock together. So you have all these guys coming in with their pain, their ignorance, their fear, their anger, and all this jazz, and they banded together, and they gained a voice, and they started saying a lot of the same stuff, and it felt together, right? And I think what happened after a while is despite some of the messages out there to go improve yourself, but the majority of it was just bitching and complaining about women. Over time, I think many realized, like the listeners, many realized that their life hadn't changed, that they're still single, they're still bitter, they're still ignorant, they're still undesirable, and they're still in the same place that they were back when they first joined. The only difference is now that they're educated about certain aspects of the game. But it's only aspects of the game when it comes to dangers and things to watch out for, pitfalls, roadblocks, speed humps, and that sort of stuff, which is fine. All right, you should know about some of the things that can get you tripped up. Okay, we don't want to be ignorant about certain things, and that's fine. But never, in my experience, has there been discussions about the positive sides of things, right? And we can see this the way they talk about female nature. The way they talk about female nature, it seems that just females are just demons. And so if that's all they're talking about, then that shows that either they're regurgitating shit from people who have no experience or very little experience, or their only experience with women has been completely negative, and they've never experienced the nurturing, beautiful, giving side of a woman.
Seen as motivation?
My answer would be that is to better men and keep women in their place, actually.
How many manosphere creators can you think of that don't lean traditional?
I believe there's more and more that are emerging, but not many off the top. The ones off the top are pretty old-fashioned, if you could say.
I don't think they want traditional marriage. I just think they just want to have fun with many as women that they can.
If modern women were all virgins who cooked and cleaned, would you still get married under the current laws?
No.
See, and this is faulty thinking. Okay, laws will be laws. All right, and it's not about. Yes, of course. Okay, let's say it helps that a woman is a certain way that's conducive to a masculine man, all right, who knows how to lead and who knows how to influence. If your influence is great to the point where her pride has been reduced and it's replaced with her pride in being your woman, pride in being your wife, pride in being a mother, okay, and her ego has been reduced, and your influence is able to get deep into her heart, deep into her mind. You're working on her behaviors, her habits, and things of that nature to bring her closer and closer and closer into being something that is, extremely synergistic with who you are, which is contingent upon you living a pretty damn principled life. So if these things are the case, then what happens outside, it doesn't matter. Whatever laws are there doesn't matter. Okay? Focusing on this stuff comes from a place of fear, comes from a place from guys who have never had a woman who is completely and utterly influenced by who you are. And they answer to you in such a way that it's joyous surrender to you. This is what these guys have never experienced. So of course they're going to look at things that are fearful. They're looking at these pitfalls and things like that. And someone might say that I'm deluded, okay? But I'd argue that they've not experienced what I've experienced.
Because marriage is one big scam, man. Because because once the laws and once the courts and once the judicial system gets involved, it's all about money at that point. So no, I definitely wouldn't.
I would not get married under the current laws, either way, because the current laws put men at a disadvantage, and that is the biggest blessing I think Red Pill's given me with that question, is exposing the marriage laws.
So then why are they more focused on body count than changing the laws?
Because they're losers who don't get laid. Think about it. If you are starving, okay, all you're going to think about and talk about is food. If all you talk about is what women are doing with their bodies, likely it's because you don't have access to it and you're bitter about it. This is really the case. Never have I ever heard a man who has no problems with obedience from a woman, getting sex from a woman, having her behaviors conducive to his life from a woman, talk about her behaviors, especially when it comes to sex. Why would a guy who gets regular sex complain about what a woman is doing with her body? He's getting what he wants. So if you're complaining and you're criticizing, it just points to the finger that you're just not getting what you want. And instead of looking at the self, which is what a lot of these guys fail to do, they're afraid to do that, it's just much easier to point the finger at what women are doing. When they don't realize that if you're that guy and you're influential, all those behaviors can change.
Superficiality and not getting to the root cause.
Is the biggest goal of the Red Pill to address the divorce problem or the incel problem?
The divorce problem, honestly, because a lot of the divorces are initiated by women, and they're not even there. And a lot of it has to do with women getting bored in relationships and marriages faster.
Yes, this is true. And I did a little video about that myself, that women do get bored faster in relationships than men do. And this is just part of their nature. This, and they're the receiver. Now, we can't cherry pick, okay? Like, yes, women are the receiver, just in so many different ways, okay? And we cannot cherry pick of what we think is good receiving and not good receiving. Part of receiving is the experience of you, okay? And if you are boring, or you're repetitive, or you're too regimented, strict, and predictable, then the mind is going to adapt, and get bored. And this happens all the time. This is how our minds are really constructed. It's just women are more susceptible to it. All right. And guys might say, well, it's not my job to be an entertainer. Okay. I get that. All right. Now, yes, you're not an entertainer. This is not your role. All right. To entertain her, to keep her around. Okay. If she wants to leave, she can leave. All right. But part of being a leader is also being a creative expressionist. And part of that is, and being a creative expressionist leads to variety. And it's because you feel like creating it. If you don't have a desire to create variety as an expression of you, well, then maybe you're not cut out for long-term relationships, because that's just the way it is. It's like looking at like music performers. All right. Some people are just not cut out for long careers in music performance. And the best ones that are, they continuously change what they're doing. They don't do the same thing over and over and over. You know, somebody that I look to for this as an example is David Bowie. David Bowie had a hugely long career. Okay. And if you look at his career, he changed constantly. I mean, he even had an album, I think, called Chameleon or something like that. He was constantly evolving and changing. Now, if you yourself as a man are constantly evolving and changing, and this is being shown in how you express yourself within that relationship and how you express yourself as a man, this is always going to keep her on her toes. Also, as your principles change as you get older, your rules change as you get older, the structures by which you keep these things enforced and how you exert them, this will change also. Okay? But do guys operate this way? No. They get the job, they do the thing, they kick their feet up. They get the girl, they do the thing, they kick their feet up. They get married, they do the thing, they kick their feet up. And they get very comfortable in normalcy. They get very comfortable in not growing, in learning new means of expressing themselves, to growing their knowledge. This is the fault of many men. They're lazy. They have no desire. They have very little desire. All right? Give them an easy boy or a lazy boy recliner, a TV with sports, some food, the occasional sex, you know, roof over their head, a job, and they're like, all right, cool, I'm set for life. I could do this forever. And it's like, well, that's fine if that's how you want to roll, but understands that a woman will get bored of you very quickly.
So I think the divorce would definitely be the target in that.
There's an attempt to make it look like it is to solve the divorce problem. However, it has starkly turned into a raging overreaction to address the incel problem that has been caused by massive waves of feminism.
No. That is creating a scapegoat. The only person who's responsible for your lack of sex life is you. No one has control over you. You are not a puppet. If you look at your wrists and ankles, there are no strings. All right? The things in your life that you're unhappy about are due to your own choices and your mentality. That's it. You are the cause and the cure for your own suffering. It's not feminism that created incels. Incels created incels. Now, did feminism have a role in that, in the sense that these weak minds allowed the thoughts and ideas and projections go into their minds and affect them? Yes. But there's tons of other things that are that way. Tons of media, right? Music, literature, politics, religion. I've said this many times before. Your main number one fortress is the one around your mind. And you have to be very, very vigilant about what comes in and what doesn't.
Why is it when women complain, reforms are made, but when men complain, we're told to improve?
Well, first of all, why is he comparing men to women? But we're not equal.
I think because the nature of reality does cater to women. Women are catered to. That's why you see less homeless women on the street. You've heard probably a lot of people say that. But women are catered to. Men are just expected to go out, get it, figure that shit out for yourself.
aim high,
Yes.
to quote unquote get the bag, to get the short-term relationship that isn't going to last.
If so many men today are broken out of shape, why are they advocating for Bugattis?
Because we think the material is what adds value to our life, when really that's the top of the pyramid, when really our foundation should be at the bottom, which is getting in shape and getting dialed in mentally and spiritually.
And a lot of people, especially people my age, unfortunately, they got a lot of participation medals growing up, and so people want the gold trophy just for showing up and doing quote unquote their best.
Everybody gets a trophy wife.
Everybody gets a trophy wife. Nobody wants to actually do the work, though. Everybody wants to get that ribbon, and the ribbon is the Bugatti and the 10 model wife or whatever that is to you, but nobody wants to eat healthy, work out, work hard, save your money, maybe invest, start a business, fail a business. You never know if you never try, but too many people want to just do the bare minimum, exist, and then get all the dopamine in the world.
Yes, this is true. And I'm sorry for you young guys who have grown up in this push button culture where you can have clothes at your doorstep, food at your doorstep, a date at your doorstep, a car at your doorstep. You can pretty much get all of your needs at the push of a button. And unfortunately, that has, I think, contributed to young men being extremely lazy. Now, the part about the participation trophy, I remember when this happened. I was a kid, and I think this started in like the mid to late 80s. And I vividly remember being at the like the season ending banquet for my soccer team. And it was the sort of thing where like everybody got together, they ordered a bunch of pizzas and all this stuff, and parents came, and all the players and coaches, and we got together and had a good time at the end of the season. And coaches would give speeches and all that good shit, and trophies were awarded, right? For things that made sense, like VIP, and whatever. There was a few of them, right? Not many, but there was a few. And then everyone got a medal, right? And I got a medal, or I'm sorry, a little trophy. And I got a trophy for some sort of participation that I was doing. I can't remember what it was, but it was something that I did extra on the team, and I was being recognized for it. And then this other kid, everybody got the smaller trophies, and he sat down next to me, and I'm looking at his trophy and I'm looking at mine, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, I busted my ass to get my bigger trophy here, and I was recognized by name and all that stuff. And here's my teammate over here who mostly sat the bench. And because back then, still, thankfully, it wasn't like everybody gets a chance. Like, if you sucked, you weren't going to get as much playtime. All right. And so he was kind of shitty, and he didn't get as much playtime, yet he got a trophy. And I remember sitting there as a kid going, what the hell is going on? Like, what? I don't understand. Like, it made me feel less recognized by my achievements because he almost got the same thing that I did. So, growing, if this is like been your norm, where everybody's like, oh, everybody gets a chance, everybody's equal, everybody's great, and it grows a sense of entitlement without understanding that there is no real entitlement. You don't get just because you feel you do. You get because you've worked for it. That's the truth of the world since the world began, right? The cavemen looked at another guy, they had fire, and it's like, well, okay, either I can take his fire or I can build a fire, but either way I have to do something about it. I can't just sit here and go, well, I deserve fire, and just cry. Like, that's not, and no one's going to come over and go, oh man, I'm sorry, man. Like, you know what? You're the same as me, so here's some fire. And we're like, oh, fuck that. Like, there's limited food out here. There's limited resources. There's, limited women. There's, limited everything. I'm not giving you my shit just because you're sad about not having it. And that's what these guys are. Unfortunately, the sadness has turned into rage. And this is the problem.
Why would Myron write a book called Why Women Deserve Less while sculpting men on how to provide women more?
Because Myron is selling you his product. Myron is selling you his podcast. He's selling you his videos. He's selling his books. He's a salesman. Men, All these are is the new self-help book for men. And it's not even that good.
His book definitely has some truth in it, because a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you know, that as men that you're supposed to have women respect you, and
You're not supposed to have women respect you. You get respect by being respectable and then moving in a way that commands it, not demands it. Okay? Commands it comes silently. Demanding it comes out verbally.
that's pretty much what the main thing of his book is about, you know, as a man.
If Myron admits women live life on easy mode, why is he proposing that we...
Well, first of all, why are you worrying about women that aren't your woman? And if she's your woman, she better not be living on easy mode. You should be having her work for her position.
place more burdens upon men?
I couldn't tell you why he says that, but I would guess it's because he knows that the traditional role of a man is to bear the brunt of a burden. However, traditionally, that's for one woman, your wife.
Not all women live on easy mode. Because they live on easy mode, they wouldn't be out here trying to get the top tier dude.
We see it today. Somebody can start an OF and simply put pictures of themselves up in a bikini and in 6 months quit their job. It is easy, and it's always going to be easy. And the only way that's ever going to change is if men stop doing what you're doing. Just stop caring about these women that do that. Just stop it.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, that guy's a little bit off sometimes, but he's absolutely right. You should not be paying attention or giving any sort of like, damn, your money, okay, towards these women. They're not yours. So why are you even looking or listening to any of them? They are all NPCs. So I advise you, go through your Instagram and look at who you're following. All right. Now, I'm not saying don't follow any woman, because if they're producing content that is worthwhile and it's got, good information or good advice, or, maybe it's about vitamins or nutrition or business or whatever, that's fine. But if you're following a woman on Instagram simply because you like the way her tits look, then you're wasting it. You're wasting your attention on someone who is an NPC. They're offering no value. And what you're saying inadvertently is saying, I value the way that woman looks. Why? That is a weak position, because if they value that, that means that they can control you with it. Okay? So in the same way, like if you're looking at, say, a woman who has information that's valuable, okay, what they do and how they move can also influence certain things, okay, with yourself. But that's coming from something that you actually value. Right? That can produce something. Nothing can actually be produced from a woman's looks. You can't really do anything with it except get off on it. And that's a very, very low, dare I say, vibrational way of going at things. Okay? A woman's looks don't matter. They only matter in the sense of, if I get with this woman, could I possibly produce good offspring? Okay? Now, these days, all right, a lot of women are getting plastic surgery and things like that. So I might advise not picking up a young woman in Miami where there's like tons of women getting work done on their faces and their bodies. All right. And if you do, see if you can take a look at pictures of her mother when she was younger and her mother where she is now. Okay. Because that can kind of dictate how things might go for this young lady that you're seeing. All right. So unfortunately, looks are deceiving. They say looks can be, today they are, depending on your situation.
Do you find it hypocritical how everyone from Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, Brian from whatever, have all profited from and promoted the incel problem of OnlyFans girls while claiming to be men's advocates?
It's definitely problematic in a lot of ways. You shouldn't be selling the cure if you're also the cause of the disease.
These red pill people are selling you a dream that you can be this big macho man and be the head honcho on campus or on whatever you are doing in life. They're trying to sell you that like you could be this big macho man that doesn't have to buy OnlyFans material, doesn't have to buy OnlyFans products. But guess what? They're talking to the same people, to the same incels.
What's the difference between a tradcon, a red pillar, a MGTOW, and a men's rights advocate?
There
I don't even understand the point of this question. Like, they're all different ideologies and they can cross over and all exist in the same person. I just don't see the point.
are a lot of differences. I think it all comes down to branding.
MGTOW means men's going their own way, meaning men have found their own value and just and going through so much pain and hurt through their life. It's about their time for them to be alone for themselves. And then men advocates, definitely it's definitely in the same regard. They all mean the same thing. You know, as far as like a man just going his own way.
Why does the manosphere lump all these people together just because they're anti-feminist?
That's a good one. That's a tough one, man.
It's just easier to talk about. That's what people
honestly
categorize.
They group us together. They group us together because we're such a small niche in the manosphere community, men who feel like this. So they have to put us together, but it's right though. You know what I mean? Because that means our voice is more powerful than what they think.
Just because you're anti-feminist, does that necessarily mean that you're pro-men?
No.
Instead of just bringing on OnlyFans girls, why isn't there ever a debate between all of these ideologies?
Well, that might be helpful, but I don't see how far it would go. I think something that would be a little bit more productive if they are going to have women on is not to have these, attractive young ladies who are, having OnlyFans. Like, who gives a shit? Okay. Like, obviously they're doing that so they can have more views by having attractive women on there and have, these guys who really don't hear the voice of women talking conversationally to be in a conversation, so they can kind of like hear a woman speak by proxy. It's kind of weird. But instead, why not have maybe some people with something intelligent to say, right? Bring some real content, real intelligent content if they want to talk about these things in a deeper, more constructive fashion than just bringing in these like 23-year-old OnlyFans girls. Like, who cares what they have to say, right? It's not going to be anything groundbreaking. It's not going to be influential. Like, if you are going to listen, and I advise you that it's a waste of time in the first place. Like, all those types of podcasts where there's a bunch of women on is a complete waste of time for a man. Why? Because our time is valuable. And why would we waste it listening to a bunch of NPCs? And I don't say this in any sort of derogatory way, but if you're not campaigning to be on my program and you're not my mother, then you're an NPC, meaning that you just have very limited access to my awareness. Because why would you have access to my awareness? There's no, you're not in any sort of position. So I see you and then I pass you by in almost the same amount of time.
Because people are scared to have their ideas genuinely challenged.
How can there be all these supposed men's advocates that don't get along with each other?
The nature of the ego, especially a male ego, is competitive. So I'd say just the male ego generally being competitive.
Why are feminists more in sync with each other than men are?
Because the nature of women, I would say, is to get along and to solve problems by talking about them in a community-like fashion.
Because feminine, all they have is to group together and try to make some kind of Me Too type of movement to try to make seem like they're equal to men.
Are men less capable of unification, and aren't these guys proof of that?
They are.
So like I said before, males who have no influence can benefit from unification. Now, I can guarantee that if they were strong men, they wouldn't need unification. They wouldn't even give a shit. It wouldn't even be on their radar. All right? They might have a couple of close friends, and that is it. All those other males would become NPCs, right along with the women who are NPCs.
It's kind of like a catch-22. too, it's like you got one half saying, you know, bros over hoes and all that, but at the same time, these are the same dudes that are clowning dudes that's not on the same level as them. So, and those are the dudes that's actually watching these videos. Like I said before in the beginning, they don't care about the people that they're selling these courses to or giving this advice to. It's just, they're just numbers and views to them.
Should Fresh and Fit, Pearl, Andrew Tate, and whatever podcast represent the whole manosphere just because they're popular?
Definitely not. No, because just because they have a popular voice, they shouldn't represent the whole man. Because what their experience is doesn't determine what somebody else who's going through somewhat is not their experience either.
All men are different. No men are the same. All men have different values and different traditions and different religions and raised in different countries. Some men had fathers in the home. Some men had women in the home. So you can't put us all in the same category.
Why was there no mention of a high-value man during the men's rights discussions of the past?
I think probably because men weren't generally seen as inherently low value for the longest time. Nowadays, men are typically regarded as low value. Nobody wants an average man, quote unquote.
Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, a high value man was a normal, average, everyday man that went to work and protected the people he cared about and gave them what he could.
Well, in other words, why is the average man never given a seat at the table when they are the ones most affected by all of this?
It's because they're whining now. And if they're not whining, they're full of poor me. That's really what it is. Like I was talking with a guy before, just through Instagram, and we were chatting. And this guy, you know, he's got his shit together, at least like on the outside world. He runs a business. I think he's a country guy. He does like, I don't know, something to do with trucks and emergency and things like that. I can't remember exactly, but he's fine. Okay. But he has such an incredible amount of low self-esteem and poor me that, of course, no woman is going to get around him and think this guy is going to be great to spend time with. Okay? If you feel like shit about yourself, it's going to seep out of your pores. It's going to come through in the tone of your voice. It's going to show in your eyes. It's going to show in the words you use and the behavior you use and your posture and everything else. And she's going to pick up on it because women are supremely adept at reading things between the lines. They're sensitive beings. So, like, it's no wonder that he has such trouble with women. Okay? And so it's like a lot of these guys, they're whiners, or they have a poor me problem.
Because the majority of the people, the majority of the content creators that are in place, that are on the top, they're gatekeeping.
Should Fresh and Fit, Pearl, Andrew Tate, and whatever podcast represent the whole manosphere just because they're popular?
Absolutely not. They all have their own brand and their own ego.
Does being popular mean that you have a good message?
No, Hitler was very popular.
Does being popular mean that you have a good message?
No, not at all. You can be popular and be dumb as hell. You see it on social media every day. The dumbest things get the most views.
Why has the Red Pill movement replaced most of the published veteran authors and intellectuals for a bunch of entertainers and shock jocks?
That's what's hot nowadays in society. People
Laziness.
have...
mental laziness.
You've probably heard it called TikTok brain. It's far more entertaining to watch clips online than it is to pick up a book and read, or actually go to a conference and hear somebody that's probably smarter than you, that read more than you, that has been around longer than you speak, and maybe could give you some insight.
We don't want to get into the nuance. We want the sound bites and the sound clips because they're selling us stuff. And the 15, 30-second sound bites and sound clips get your attention, get your clicks, get that money from the CPM and the ad revenue.
Why does Brian, who's anti-marriage, continue bringing on tradcons to promote marriage while never challenging them about changing laws?
I bet Brian deeply wants to be married, but he's too scared. I think he probably has a traditional mindset, but he's too scared because he doesn't know how, because he probably hasn't had a deep level of influence over a woman before. But that's just my guess.
That's a pretty damn good point. I've actually never seen him question that. Maybe he should start doing that if he really wants change.
I think that at the end of the day, a lot of us aren't actually anti-marriage. I think that marriage has become corrupted in this society, particularly by the laws and the government.
No, marriage gets corrupted by weak men getting married. This is why the divorce rate is so high. It's not because women are demons. It's because the women end up marrying someone who doesn't know what they're doing. That's all it comes down to. Because people, in general, and this includes women, will not get rid of something that influences them, that they feel is valuable. They won't, right? And women, especially when it comes to men and males, they have a very large understanding of what males are and what to expect from them. And sometimes they will they'll get a male who's like pretty darn good, okay? But he's not a man. And she'll weave a story in her mind, because women are very, very good at weaving stories in their minds to convince them of certain things. And maybe she desperately wants to get off of the dating market. So she'll put it in her head, this idea, this fantasy, this story, that everything's great. But her nature will not be able to compete with that, or that won't be able to compete with her nature once it starts bubbling up to the surface over some time, because you cannot keep a narrative in your mind forever. And eventually the nature will come through, and it will say, without saying, this doesn't feel right. I don't feel this man in my ovaries, right? Like he doesn't grip me by my soul. Okay, I don't feel like praying to him. I'm not motivated or inspired to revere this man. Okay? And most women, I think, who get married are married to men who are not like that. And so they find themselves with the story dwindling away eventually, and then they're like, fuck. And then they start getting resentful and angry, and then they're like, you know what? I'm out. That's usually what happens.
Why are we still expecting men to be traditional when women no longer want to be traditional?
That's a good question, man.
Of course they do. Women being traditional is only an extension of their nature. The vast majority of women love to be led. Just they love to be led by a man that they love and who knows how to lead. That's the difference, right? So they're not being traditional because they don't have exposure to men who know how to influence and lead. So you can't blame them for what they are right now. It's a reaction.
Damn, that's a good question. Because that is what they're pushing. That is what they're pushing. That is a good question. I'm going to say something. I'm just collecting my thoughts right now. Yeah, why are we pushing men to be traditional when women ain't traditional? Because women will straight let you know they're not traditional, because they don't cook clean, they don't do none of that. No. All they care about is the bag and designer, and so I think
when you're influential, you can teach these sort of things to her. When you're influential, she'll drop her values, she'll change her beliefs, her moral structure will alter to line up with yours. She will adopt your principles. She'll adopt your codes. She will listen to your rules. And you can design it however you see fit. And if she's really fucking into you, she will say, yes, sir, with a smile on her face. And those that say that's not possible, it's only because you have no experience in it. Okay? But just because you've not walked on the moon doesn't mean that it can't happen.
It should stop, to be honest with you.
Why does Brian complain about all the things men have to do on a first date, but then say chivalry is dead? What part of the dating process isn't chivalry?
Shoot. Well, I know his.
So that comes from a false perspective as well, right? That's coming from the perspective that the woman is this prize or this person that you have to prove yourself to, okay? That is the whole thing behind this misunderstood notion of chivalry, because chivalry is actually a set of behavior principles that pertained only to knights. So if you're not a knight, you don't have to be chivalrous. The term was adopted, and it has no place for men who are not knights. There was a strict code of behaviors for knights only. Okay, so that aside, how he's talking, oh, Brian, the things you have to do for dates and stuff like that. No, this is coming from a position of a man, well, of a male who does not understand what they are. Because once you realize and have experienced the benefits of leading and having influence, you understand your value. You can understand how valuable your presence is, your words, your thoughts, and your actions, how valuable they actually are. And then I hate using this term, but understand that you are the prize. But it's bigger than a prize. A prize is this little award that's given out due to achieving a certain something. Okay? You're more than the prize. You're the whole fucking game. The prize would be, I don't know, maybe some dick if she's been good. Okay? But you yourself is much greater than the prize. You are the entire game. You are the game, you are the venue, you are the game show host, you are the structures of the game, and you are everything of the rewards of the game. She is a mere participant. And if she participates well, then she gets a prize. All right? So this is coming from a completely faulty position, even at the onset of the question.
His stance, I think I've heard that he's not the type of guy to provide to pay for the first date. I know that for sure. Not the guy to get married and all that. But yeah, that's a good point, actually.
It's called hoflation, right?
Yeah.
You ever know what hoflation means, right?
Yeah.
Men have to work 10 times as hard to get women 20 times worse, right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying,
that's ridiculous. Because worse in what way? Okay, because if a woman's campaigning to get on your program, and maybe she successfully gets a foothold on that program and perhaps becomes an intern, you then decide what her value is, of what's better or worse, based on her performance and her adherence to your program. How obedient is she? How well does she respond to positive, negative reinforcement? How willing is she to follow? This is where a woman's value comes into play. This is coming again from a faulty perspective.
saying is, why is the solution always for men to improve, but never for women to lower the standards and accept more average men like they did in the past?
So you said, so why is this being pushed at for men to improve?
Yeah,
Let's just rewind for a second.
But never for women to lower the standards and accept more. Right?
Yeah.
You ever know what hoflation means, right?
Yeah.
Men have to work 10 times as hard to get women 20 times worse, right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, why is the solution always for men to improve, but never for women to lower the standards and accept more average men like they did in the past?
So he's advocating basically that we should hear more, that women should lower their standards to get with more average men. Okay? You don't have to improve yourself. You should if you want to, okay? But not for the sake of women, okay? Improve yourself because you're dissatisfied with yourself and you think you can do better. That's fine, okay? If you're looking at yourself from last year, a couple years ago, and you're looking at yourself today, like, has there been change? Has there been growth, okay? Just like you would with your stock portfolio, and if things aren't going well, you change your strategies. But for the sake of that portfolio, for the sake of the self, this isn't about who's looking at the portfolio and what value they think it has. Who gives a fuck if somebody looks at my portfolio and they're like, oh, I don't like what you're doing. Okay, I don't care. I've got my advisor. And that's the opinion that I give a shit about. All right? Everyone else, you're an NPC. You don't matter until you've proven yourself that you matter. This like improvement of women, this can happen when she has made herself willing. If she's not, well, then either you don't know how to lead, you don't have a program, the program sucks, or you've got low self-esteem.
In the past.
So you said, so why is this being pushed at for men to improve?
Yeah, how is that not just feeding into hoflation? You're basically placing more burdens on men, expecting men to step their game up to appease women with superficial values.
Oh, you're right about that. You're right about that, because
I mean, is that
right? Again, it's coming from the position that women are these judges, these arbiters of what is good and what is acceptable, when that should only be determined by who's in the mirror.
it's feeding into the problem?
I see what you're saying now, because just because you're a high value man, that doesn't mean that the solution is going to be fixed.
There's no such thing.
Because it's a perpetual cycle.
If becoming high value was the end all be all, why have so many high level men been destroyed by the legal system?
Listen, there's no high value men, okay? There's only two categories. There's men and there's males. That's it. And as I pointed out on my last video, the only thing that determines what a man is, or the two things, is having a spine and having a set of balls. And specifically what that spine is constructed of. All right? And if it's of good stuff, your spine will be erect and will stand tall. There's men who have these two things, and then there's those males who do not have these things. That's it. There's no value within those things. Either you're a man or you're not. It's as simple as that.
You're right about that, because they take everything, man. You know what? You're right. So what's the point of even being high value? And the woman that you're gonna end up with, they're not with you for you. They're with you because you're high value. And so,
because you have no
once you do marry him or you do give them that proper role as your wife, stuff like that, that's their meal ticket. They dipping off to the next one. And number one, not all high value men are attractive to begin with. So, in all hindsight, their money is their personality. Because a lot of these dudes are socially awkward when they're in front of women. When they're in front of women by themselves, they're socially awkward. So their money is the personality.
I mean, aren't you really just making yourself a bigger target?
Yep.
You making yourself a fat ass target. Excuse me for cussing, but yeah. So, if I was a high value man right now, I'll be a target. So I'm gonna stay where I'm at.
You're not a target because you have money. You're a target because you're an idiot with money. There's a difference.
Right where I'm at, because I don't need the trouble.
All right, so that's the end of that. Man, there's so I hope that you can see through some of this analysis just how poorly a lot of these guys think. Salute to everybody in here. Let me just give a quick shout out. Manny Dash, good to see you. Instant Classic, what's up, my man? King Solar Power, I see you. Mathis R, Pikachu, thank you. Yeah, so let's just look at what you're saying here, Pikachu. You request Mr. Justin shares philosophy on this channel because every time you share your thought process is pretty awesome. Philosophy for men. Well, this is more in the program, but yeah, you're right. I could put out general ideas, but that's going to be in the book as well as in the program. How men should live his life and move in life, plus your experience also will be very helpful for young guys. Yeah, but see, the thing is that I do not, so this is one of my beliefs, is I do not believe in prescription. I do not believe in saying there is the way, okay? The way is understanding yourself on a deeper level, on a foundational level. And what I do in the academy is I provide the blank architecture paper, the blue paper with the white lines on it and shit. I don't draw anything on there. I tell you what goes on it, and then I give you the tools in order to figure that out, and then questions to get you thinking and homework to get you working your mind such that you can then create what goes on that architecture paper. so that you create your own philosophy about how you see yourself and how you see the world, right? All the while challenging certain beliefs from your upbringing, from your parents, from your church or your religion or whatever, your politics, your schooling. All this stuff can come into question. That doesn't mean it all gets thrown out, but it comes into question to then take what actually needs to be thrown out because it doesn't serve you and keep the things that do serve you. And it's a very long process. So I can't really say what my philosophy is because this is only something that works for me. And I do not want people to take what I do in my life and what works for me and the things that I stand on and have some young man say, oh, I want to be like Mr. Justin, so I'm going to start thinking the way he does. That takes them further away from the truth. The truth is you thinking the way you want to think and understanding why you're thinking this way and what beliefs you have and what's foundational underneath those beliefs. And are these things important to you that you're standing on? This is more important than following what I believe. So I really don't spend too much time talking about my beliefs because they're pretty much irrelevant to every other man. Right? If I say this to people who I respect as men, they'd be like, all right, cool story. Like, whatever. They don't give a shit. Right? Because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't matter to them. Sure, it might matter to them if, I'm fucking up or, I'm harming people, and they might be like, that's kind of questionable. You might want to look at that. But in general sense, they're not really going to give a shit. Okay? And I would expect young men to really not give a shit about my philosophies. Right? But if people are interested in hearing them, sure, I'll have some of that stuff on on the program as well as in my book that I'm working on. Yeah, there's just a lot to it, Pikachu. But yeah, I appreciate that. The sexual dynamic stuff is really just for bringing people in. I was working with a business coach a number of years ago, and when I first started out coaching, and I was like, you know what, I want to. I want to help men. So he's like, well, what's your angle? What are you selling? And at the time I was selling and trying to teach men how to be more masculine. And then he's like, yeah, that sounds cool. And I understand the need out there, but how does that sound? I'm selling you masculinity. I'm selling you how to be more masculine. That isn't a need that guys are saying, this is what I want. Like, of course they want, if they really thought about it, they're like, oh yeah, I'd really like to be more masculine. But what do they really want? Guys typically want two things. They want access to more sex and want access to more money. That's pretty much it. So the best models are about teaching how to get women and how to keep them and how to make more money. So I'm not that much interested in teaching guys how to make more money. There's plenty of fantastic people who have way more knowledge than I do, out there in the world that are really good at what they do. And so, I'm teaching things that I'm passionate about. And so he was like, listen, you got to put sex on the front end. That's what you have to do. You have to sell men's ability to get ass. And it's funny because that's counter. I fought with me for a long time because I'm like, that's really not what I'm selling. Like, sex is like super, super low on the list of what guys really, really want, really need. Like, when we get into those deep conversations, you understand that they're really just wanting and needing a relationship with themselves that's quite lost at the moment. And they're looking for that deep understanding so they can walk out into the world and feel completely grounded with each and every step they make with zero self-doubt. Going through life this way is rewarding beyond measure that no amount of pussy could even come close to. The feeling of peace, the feeling of inner stillness that comes from having zero doubt in yourself is immeasurable. And guys, they don't understand that because they've never really thought about things in those terms and never really could relate. So it's not even on the radar as something to achieve, because they're still stuck on those surface levels of things like, oh, I just want titties in my hands. It's like, okay, but that's so easy. Stop worrying about the easy and let's look at what's hard, what's actually causing you suffering in your life. And if you really look at it and you got the balls to face it, you'll understand that it's you. It's been you the entire time. It's been you causing your own suffering the entire time. It's not these dudes out here complaining about feminists. Feminists are irrelevant. It's not the fucking court system. It's irrelevant. The entire thing has been you, since you were born, or since your mind has been influenced by things outside of you. This is where the problems began. And you said, yes, sir, without realizing that you were saying, yes, sir. And to a degree, we've all had that experience. But it's up to you as a grown man and a critical thinker to see the world from an objective perspective, to see how you think from an objective perspective and say, do I think in a way that's prosperous to me? Just with your thought patterns. So that requires the habit of being able to step back and going, let me evaluate my own thoughts. How do I talk to myself throughout the day? Do you even think about that? Is that even in part of your daily awareness of how you talk to yourself? You'd be surprised at how often, like if you guys were in my seat, you would be flabbergasted about how often guys talk shit about themselves, talk themselves down, infuse more doubt into their already insecure nature. You would be surprised at how common it is and how often it happens throughout the day. Because I have my guys track this sort of thing. I help them build their awareness to how they relate and how they speak to themselves. You'd shit yourself at how much it was. And, it brought about a certain level of compassion, because it's like they don't even realize that this is the reality that they're living in. And so there's a lot of deprogramming that has to happen, a lot of understanding that has to happen, opening your eyes to a lot of things. And it's not opening your eyes to what women are doing. It's like at the level that we're dealing with in the academy, that stuff is superfluous. It doesn't matter. And it's like when you get on the level and you start building your constitution and you start operating from that, what they're doing becomes equally superfluous. It becomes irrelevant, because all that matters is, are you following your program? And then is she being obedient? That's it. It doesn't matter what her religious views are. It doesn't matter if she is a feminist or once was, or who she's going to vote for, or what food she eats, or if she's vegan or she's a carnivore or whatever. All that matters is she following you? That's it. Whether she's had 3 sexual partners or 57 sexual partners, is she following you? Because you could find this woman who wears fucking country ankle-length dresses, has only had sex with one person in her life, and she looks at you like you're a complete fool. And she will not follow you for anything. Is she better? Is she better than, say, woman you met in a nightclub who strips on the weekends? And, she's been with, more men that you care to know. But you get together and she is on her knees, both figuratively and literally, saying, yes, sir, how can I please you today? How can I help you today? Please give me instructions today. Which is better? All that matters is if somebody is on your program campaigning to be on your program and they're consistent about it. Boom, 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 every single day. And you have a system by which to keep everything in check, including yourself, of course. So it's like, what's it matter? What she feels, what she believes, where she comes from, what her nationality is, what her beliefs are, how many people she's been with, what kind of career she's had, if she's college educated, not college educated, she's married before, divorced, has children, doesn't have children. It doesn't matter. None of that really matters. I mean, unless you've got certain particulars where, say, let's say you are trying to start a family, okay? and you want to be like, okay, I want my bloodline to not be crossed over with anyone else's bloodline with this woman, and so I don't want to be with a woman who already has children. Fine, like whatever, all right. But that's not a factor to determine whether she can follow you or not. Okay, that's a separate thing that has to do with certain goals that you have. Okay, but your goal shouldn't be able to determine whether she's, able to follow you or not. Right? She could have kids and follow you or not follow you. She could have no kids and follow you or not follow you. All right. But guys they'll look at what's going on with a woman and, inside and out, and determine whether she's good enough or not. And those aren't the qualities to see if she's good enough or not. Okay. That can only be measured against certain particular things. Okay. Like I understand, like if you're like a staunch religious person, you're like, you know what? I'm a Protestant. I'm only going to date Protestants, and that is it. Okay. And that's like part of your belief structure, and that's something you stand on as part of your constitution. Great. Okay. Fine. Okay. But again, that's not what determines her value. Her value is only determined on her level of obedience and her proactivity. Okay. So it's not just about listening, but is she listening and looking ahead and seeing, how can I help more? Okay. Just like if you've ever run a business and you've ever had an employee or employees, the best ones are not the ones that do their job. The best ones are the ones that do their job, but then look for other ways that they can help the business more. Okay. And you can see someone who already does this, or you can also see the potential for someone to do this, and you can give them tasks to teach them how to be this way. And then if they've got the right type of personality traits, they'll just graft right to it and be this way, because then you can start reinforcing that with positive reinforcement and so on and so on. And next thing you know, you've got a very proactive team member on your team. Okay. So let's see. You got another thing here. I appreciate your comments, Pikachu. Love that. I'm waiting for that day when you share your philosophical perspectives. The more you speak about this topic, the more my inner thinker says, this is music, just top quality food for the soul. I appreciate that, man. And you can do me a favor and share my videos with anyone you think that would appreciate them. My second to last message I meant to say, get through crowd. Oh, coward. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's important to get through the crowd to get eyes on you to share the real game out there. Yeah, it's just the way it is. It's just that's been the way it is. The masses have always been able to ingest things that are easy to ingest, and sometimes the things that are easy to ingest are not that great. This is why we have, like, if you've done anything with, say, product, okay, like product development, okay, who does the best? The best is fucking Target and Walmart. They are destroying retail, okay? Like this, I think the CEO of Walmart is like one of the wealthiest people in the world. Okay. Who is not destroying the market? Like top tier fashion designers. Sure, they might sell a dress for like $15,000, but they're not selling hundreds or thousands of these dresses a year. They're selling like 5, But for the person who buys that dress, she is a collector. It means something to them. They're affected by it, okay? And I would much rather have influenced a small number of men that absolutely changed their lives, and I get cards from them that I can put on my refrigerator during holiday season, and it shows their happy family and says, season greeting from the Smith family, blah, 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 and it's real and true. And they're on the back, say, Justin, thank you so much for helping my marriage. I couldn't have done this without you. Merry Christmas. Me having like a dozen of those on my refrigerator every year, that's what I'm happy about. Okay. Now, if I can perhaps fill an arena, I'd probably maybe have the same percentage of influence. So out of 100, say there was like 100 people, not an arena, but like say like a, like a small hall or whatever, and I'm having a conference and there's 100 people that show up, probably the same percentage of people, maybe 12 out of that 100, I'm actually going to truly influence. The rest are going to be like everybody else. They're just going to go in one ear, out the other. Because what it really comes down to when you want to facilitate any kind of change in your life as a man, or actually anybody for that matter, is the pain of staying the same has to be greater than the pain of change, because change always is uncomfortable. Right? We're adaptive creatures. We love pleasure. We love normalcy. It's just how humans are. Okay, we don't seek out challenge. This is most people. Okay, this is just most people don't seek out challenge. Okay, but that's just how we are. So we have to get to a rock bottom position where we get sick and tired of our current reality. And not only that, they just don't sit there. They say, you know what? I'm fucking pissed about this. I'm sick of this. I need change now. Those are the people. So you're only going to come across a small handful of people. So you're going to have the majority who ignore the fact that they're suffering. Then there's going to be a smaller group who realize that they're suffering. Then there's a smaller group that say, I realize I'm suffering and I must do something about it. Then even a smaller group beyond that says, I realize I'm suffering, I must do something about it, and I'm doing something about it now. Okay? That's a very small pool. Very small. Who have the balls to do something about their own life. Despite having maybe a noodle for a spine, at least they got balls big enough that have been filled by their anger towards their own situation and their rage at wanting to stop suffering. Then those are the ones that do something. That's it. That's why going out here and like talking to people, you know, proselytizing and all this shit, all those podcasts and all that stuff, they do nothing. That's why they're completely worthless. They do nothing except fill and line the pockets of the guys who are profiting off of those that are suffering. Because they're not really offering any kind of solutions, because solutions are deep. I spend weeks just getting into your past, just talking about how your present mindset has been affected by your past. Before we get into anything constructive, we have to look at what is and why it is, right? You look any kind of like say like a political scientist or military strategist or whatever, they're constantly looking at what happened in the past because things tend to repeat themselves if you don't examine them and look for patterns and understand where things came from and look for motivations and what was happening at the time and the mindsets and all like economy and, you know, all sorts of things play into this, you know, for those realms, you know, socio-political, military, all that stuff. It all plays a role. And so you have to look at that to really understand your current position. Then once you really understand your current position without getting emotional about it, without getting pissed off, without getting poor me, without fucking driving down a fucking dark pathway and go, oh, I'm never going to be able to get out of this now because I know so much about myself, putting that aside and saying, okay, now what do I want to do about it? I'm creating a strategy into improving these things, and not in these huge leaps, because those always fail. All right, in incremental steps that can be measured and monitored over a long period of time. All right, because we have to adapt in little ways. That's how the progress is made. All right, what do they call that in lifting? Like progressive overload principle. That's what it is. So that's how you have to deal with your own mind, with progressive overload principle, both in reduction. Okay, you don't just like, if you realize, say, like your religion has been holding you back, okay, and it's been affecting your mind in a negative way, you don't just like immediately just drop the whole fucking thing and just rip it out of your head. Like, first of all, that's probably going to be impossible, but it's going to be a slow dismantling process. And maybe you're not going to dismantle the entire thing. Maybe you dismantle like a third of it, okay, and you keep what benefits you. All right, that has to be progressive, and then adding what you want to add becomes progressive. Okay, a progressive overload principle. All right, and it has to have clearly defined goals. Like, I remember, like many years ago, I was a personal trainer, and most of my clients were women. Okay, because sadly, women are much better about going after their goals than guys are. Like, guys will wait until things are just awful, and there's no way to go about changing, and then go, okay, now I need to change, right? They'll wait till they've got a fucking abscessed tooth in their mouth and needs a fucking root canal, and their gums are swollen out, and then they're like, maybe I should go to the dentist. When like months ago, when it was just this tiny cavity, they could have just dealt with it then. But that's just how guys are. But women tend to generally have like a very proactive thing. Like if they get a goal set in their mind, they're like, okay, let's go, let's do it, right? And they have to figure out, they're just very on top of it. But anyways, so most of my clients were women, and I got this one lady, and we sit down, talk about her goals and all that shit. And she's like, okay. I said, well, what do you want? She's like, well, I want to be hot. And like, okay, what is that, right? So we talked for more to get a clearly defined what hot is and what that actually means in measurable terms. Okay. So it's like we talk about weight, we talk about BMI, we talk about dress size. Okay. We talked about all sorts of things like her nutrition, the strength of her heart rate, or her resting heart rate versus her active heart rate. So there was all these measurable things, and then we could say, okay, this is where you're at now. This is where you want to be. And that is what you're calling is hot. Okay. The result of all those things becoming dialed in, that's your hotness. Okay. But just coming in and say, oh, I want to be hot, that doesn't help anything. Okay. So within the academy, it's figuring out a clearly defined vision and then clearly defined steps in order to achieve that are like not easily achievable, but easily adaptable in the sense that it's just outside of your comfort zone and bringing you a little bit further outside to make you go, okay, I can do this, right? I mean, it's putting a little bit of strain on you. And over time, it shifts everything. The next thing you know, you're looking back, and I can show messages from guys from when we first started, 4, 5, 6 months ago, and go, look, this is how you used to think. Look at the things that were coming out of your mouth back then. How you thought about yourself, how you felt about yourself, how you were addressing women in their life. Now look at you. It's completely different. You don't even recognize that person. And to think that you can do this to yourself, imagine what you can do to a woman who's on your program. Because now you have one. You know how to run it. You know how to structure it. You know how to enforce it. You know how to reward it. And then you can show her from, say, when you first meet and you start dating each other, you start seeing each other, looking at how she was messaging you and how she was responding to you. And it could have been good to a certain degree, or else she wouldn't even be there. But then say like months later, and you go, hey, baby, I just want to show you something. Okay. Without her even being fully conscious of everything that you've been influencing over, because some things are a little bit below the radar while things are very much on the forefront and saying, look, these are the rules. Okay. And then you look at your behavior now. Look at how you're addressing me now in these messages. Look at your attitude about yourself now. Look at your attitude about the relationship now. You're a different person. And this is how influence works. When you are influencing yourself, you know yourself, you can easily know and influence another person because you understand how the mind works. This is the crux. This is the crux of the academy, is understanding your mind. Well, good. I appreciate you, Pikachu. Yep, I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate your input. Yes, man. So, I encourage everybody, you don't have to be on my program. You don't have to join the academy at all. I would appreciate it if you wanted to know more. If any of you watching now or on the replay, if you want to know more, just get in touch with me and we can have a talk. It's always free. So, but what I do encourage is shutting out, if I could say anything, shut out outside influences. Be very mindful of what comes in. Your brain should be like a citadel that you protect at all costs. Be very, very mindful of what you allow in. And I'm saying, if you're watching nonsense like the Brian whatever thing or the whatever podcast, Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate, what's that lady, Pearl, Rolo Tomasi, is he still even a thing anymore? Like, is any of these like red pill guys like from the days of lore, are they still relevant? Like all that shit, or just any of these random podcasts where they're just bitching about women. Okay. What have you gotten from it? Like, have you actually grown? Has it actually made you stronger? And if so, I'd like you to tell me in what ways. How has your life improved? And something you can actually show me. I don't think it has. So you really, really have to be mindful of what comes in. Okay? Because they say, like, you are what you eat, right? That whole phrase, it was a very basic sort of thing just to watch your diet. Okay? If you're going to eat junk food, don't be surprised if you turn into a fat piece of shit with high blood pressure. Okay? So the same thing happens with what you ingest mentally. If you're mentally ingesting junk food, don't be surprised if your brain becomes a fat piece of shit with high blood pressure. Meaning you're not going to be able to think straight. The problem is that these guys make you believe that you're thinking straight, that you're seeing truth, but you're not. Because I tell you, and I said this again, if these guys were speaking truth, it would be the whole truth. And if they're talking about women, they wouldn't be talking about only the negative stuff. They would be talking about their fantastic experiences. When they wake up and the woman rises up next to them, gives them a big kiss, and they say, "Good morning, Daddy. How can I serve you today?" Why aren't they ever saying that? Because it doesn't exist for them. It doesn't. Or if it does, they're just very quiet about it. And like, why would you be quiet about that? You could be encouraging guys to receiving this sort of thing. And they'd be like, "Oh shit, how are you doing this? How is it that you have such a great relationship with this woman, just honors and respects and loves the fucking ground you walk on? How is that possible? Can I have that? Please. This is what I want." I don't care about having a boat full of women, okay, who are there just because I have money to get a boat. A lot of guys are like this. Most guys want a woman who just honors and cherishes them. So where are these women in these guys' lives? Oh, that's right. Women ain't shit, right? No, it's because you don't know how to influence them beyond your money. You don't know how to influence them beyond you having social acumen or social prowess. You don't have influence just by presence of being. So of course they're not talking about it, because if they did, I don't know why they would be silent about it. They've got the ears of thousands and thousands of guys. That's something they actually want. And when you're talking sales, you're supposed to be selling what guys want. Guys want relationships. Most guys. I mean, maybe on the surface, some of them might say, "Oh yeah, I want a little harem for myself." But that, I think, for the most part, that's just their ego talking. There's very few guys who are just completely satisfied with having a harem, and that's it. Okay? Just a sexual harem. There's very few who that's their calling. That's their comfort zone. Okay? Then there's guys who say they want that, but they're lying to themselves. And then there's the rest of them who say, "You know what, I just want to be in a relationship." And there's the angry pricks who still want relationships, but they're like, "Nah, fuck women." Okay, but they too just want a relationship. So most guys just want a solid relationship with one woman. Now, if that's what you know that most guys want, why aren't they selling that? That's what I'm selling. I'm selling the ability to run a good relationship. To create a situation where there is fucking love and respect and clear communication and plenty of yes sirs. And "I love you, sir," and "Thank you, sir, for being in my life." This is a real thing. But you have to get away from, "Oh shit, did I freeze? Uh-oh. Well, I think we've frozen here. Well, okay. That was weird. Yeah. So I just had to restart my browser. I don't know what the hell happened with Chrome. But anyways, I lost my train of thought, but whatever. All right. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Um this was a good one. This was a good stream. So, I encourage you guys to get in touch with me if you need to. You can email me at justin@thedominanceacademy.com. You can find me on Instagram at the Dominance Academy _ and find my course and any information about that at thedominanceacademy.com. I appreciate everyone who has come through here on the live and those of you who are catching me on the replay. Good to have you as well, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.